Welcome back. It has been a while, and yes, I am trying to, during Mercury retrograde, get things done. But definitely I did want to come live because I do feel in particular that this portal, okay, this point is quite difficult for a lot of people. And for that reason, especially from a spiritual point of view, I do think it's important to actually have the context of what's going on. So I have created a few slides. So if I was 15 minutes late from where I said I was coming live, as per the schedule, it is because I had to chuck some slides up. Now, we will get me on the screen and we will talk about why I have titled the title this. What's Leo? Okay, what's Leo? Leo's it's the king. It's the hero, okay? It's also, we have, for those of you that have jumped onto any video on YouTube, I have seen some really interesting things, and I wonder if some of you have noticed, where we are directly getting almost like two pocket energies, and it's not that they're wrong. It's just interesting that it's kind of split. Now, what do I mean by that? I think sometimes in the context when we are looking at astrology, especially being in a particular position in a person's house, it also, and we can't outrule this, it can be something that is happening in that area of your life of an external situation. And because we have officially, for me, I'm in Perth, Western Australia, it is station. A lot of this intensity had already been here over the last few weeks. And I really wouldn't be surprised, depending on the zodiac sign and where it's positioned for you, if those things have been already playing out. Okay, so am I dreading it? Yes. It's transiting over my Saturn. And the more I understand Saturn, I'm like, oh, I was a bad puppy in a past life. So it's humbling. But I think if we do have a toolkit, I think we're going to be able to move through this. Now, I do believe that there are going to be some people that are going to find this very difficult. And this year always was going to be difficult. I did have a chat with some people, just everyday people at work, because I've got two jobs. And, the census of everyone and everything that people were saying was really the context that they were feeling very disillusioned about this year. Every single person really had said the word shit. It was shit. And it has been hard. There were many that were saying that by mid-year this would feel different. I really don't think so, okay? And I don't think necessarily we can say it's as bad as the beginning of the year, but I definitely feel that this has been quite difficult for many people. Now, I did pick this back probably about back in 2017, and I was attempting to prepare to be on YouTube quite regularly for you guys for this moment. But universe had other kind of ideas. And we are in this portal at the moment where collectively we're moving and we're pivoting. So we are going to get into some tips. And I think the title, The Art of War, we do run the risk through a Mercury station. It's like you're coming to a T-section in the road and everything's still. So you need to keep your awareness about you. So for those of you on the opposite side of the world, the number one rule I would say is, I would say some things have already been playing out for you. The other is to be extremely careful on the road. Be extremely careful with online logins, etc. Double check everything, especially if it's in your Venus house. Double check your pays that come in. Have patience, follow up on all things. If you are planning anything, what you are going to find is it can be very frustrating. Probably not as frustrating as I would say Mars retrograde. However, I think the significance of this, being that I am looking forward in the astrology, it's interesting. I do feel we do need to keep an eye on this Mercury retrograde, and I think it's going to be quite significant. Because we do have Pluto at the moment in Aquarius, and the shadow sign is Leo. Okay, number one. And the other is where we did initially have our retrogrades with Mars, and it was traveling over two direct zodiac signs. It is to do with the nodal shifts in the future, I do believe. And I think it's something of a signature of preparing us giving us these tension points, these examples, these transitions. And this, in a way, I do feel this can, for many of us, be an external situation. Now, in the context of it, we need to look at where the South Node is. It's in a wellness zone, okay? So it's Virgo. The other thing is, being that it is Sun, pay attention to solar flares. I'm just saying, take a look. We are in this transition that it's moving through. The other thing is, because we also, during this Mercury retrograde, which is stationed initially, so I'd give it a 3-day window to ease yourself into it. Try to not walk past right away. I do believe, because Uranus has moved out of Taurus, bounced into Gemini, that can be subjects to do with power outages, technology, what else would I say? Yeah, power outages, electricity. That I always worried about it, because I was like looking at the transits and I was like, where's Venus? Now, it's not to say we're not going to have Venus, but the one thing I said to the members is, when you do look at the big boy planets, they're all sitting in signs that are not necessarily a Venusian energy. So when that exits, do pay attention. Now, Jupiter, again, it's getting its movement going forward. It's in the house of Cancer. The degree points you need to keep an eye on. It is going to change the significance of how it's going to relate to us collectively. But during this time, especially where it connects with you, a few key pointers. And I did mention these to the members, which I'm going to start bringing these to you guys here on YouTube. I'm going to have a set for them. That's going to be quite tailored and individual, hopefully, which I already have provided today. And there's some key pointers that I think maybe can help you. Now, the thing is, it's several weeks. It's moving into August that we're going to have this, which I'm like, this is probably, I would definitely say, first Mercury retrograde. I've gone, heck, I'm really not looking forward to this one. I do feel, for me in my personal life, I already know where that's happening for me. Although don't be surprised if you get surprised. You're going to be surprised for many of us. So there's more to come. I wouldn't say, I always firmly believe that a transit, say we didn't know anything to do with astrology. We get a lot of tips from people online. And it's like, do this, do that. The tips I'll give you is something that I've actually used in my own life over the years. As a human being, we all have ego. If I need to have my bread attack and I sit back and I'm really dealing with an adverse situation, sort of the way my psychology works is, okay, what am I going to do about this? And I think that's something that we all directly need. It's like, okay, well, yes, it might be you're upset, you're hurt, you're offended, or you're triggered because maybe you're trying to attain a goal or do something, and it's just not going according to plan. And so the art of war is effectively going, okay, now that we've had that moment, and at times, especially if we do have some things going on, it could be very confronting. What we're going to need to do is step back and plan that art of war. And I think that's where your power is really going to lie. It's like, okay, and I'll give you some examples shortly about that. And we are going to talk about your zodiac signs. So to keep yourself grounded, right, in the art of war, right, I would say having knowledge about astrology and all the amazing YouTubers up here that provide this. There's bloggers, there's YouTubers, you name it. There's podcasts. Get the wisdom behind you. Pull up your birth chart. Pick an astrologer. Or if you don't really resonate with that as per se, having the awareness and even supporting your friends by giving them a PM and, telling them, look, just be cautious, give them the tips that you feel maybe going to be relevant to them. They are your friends after all, you know what is going to work for them individually. So have your toolkit. If you know your behavioral pattern and your emotions or a key area that's going on, have your backup plan so that you actually can really get earthed in. I'm seeing all these commercials at the moment all over YouTube, and it is to do, I believe it's an Australian individual who has actually made these sheets that are earthing sheets, which doesn't surprise me, because Earth hertz is very different to what it used to be. So it can be like magnetic therapy and things like that. Getting your gemstones out, I would say, would be a very good time. And, you know, understanding that for a lot of us, we can be doing some shadow work relating to the inner child. And, you know, like I said, Jupiter's in Cancer. We've got Mercury retrograding in Leo. And when you're burnt out, you do need to look after your wellness. By the end of the month, we are having Chiron going retrograde. So it's about self-care. It's about reviewing your routines. It's having your toolkits to get your gems. If you've had a hectic day and the house looks crap, let it go. Self-care and self-priority. You also might get offended. You know, it could be that you feel people aren't really valuing you. People aren't respecting you. You know, you're put second all the time. And that could be a very relevant, you know, situation that can be going on. And I think that's the one thing that I beg to differ with some of the example factors that can be quite surface coding. And it's very hard because it is directly looked at from a chart, okay? Where it comes to our own individual circumstances, you get the example factor, but then you need to look at it inside your own life and say, hey, how is this coming up? So, for instance, in life, somebody could tell you're having a 7th house placement with a particular transit. Now, that's theoretically marriage contracts, partnerships. It can be, you know, it's Venusian energy. It could be your style. It could be a contract that you're changing. It could be a friendship, you know, that's kind of changing. So again, there's so many different layers to that. Knowing and understanding the base level of what that context is going to help you actually see where that is. It could act like a Venus retrograde in the 7th house. Do you understand what I'm saying? So I would say have your toolkit, have your knowledge relating to the situation. Be aware that you are not the only one that is going through this. It can make you feel less lonely, especially when we do have that shadow work coming up. Why is shadow work coming up? I'm going to get on the screen. I need to talk to you about this. I want you, for any of you who can think back, and I literally mentioned this to a friend of mine, where I was on YouTube around 2017, 18, and I was going through the dark months. So, and we had Chiron in Pisces, and that one little aspect there whooped my ass, I can tell you. And I started researching astrology, and I went, wow, when we get those nodes there, that's going to be interesting. I literally went past a building today, and it was the best analogy of what we are, in a signature sense, moving through. One sign was all to do with spirituality. And they were literally side by side. I was like, oh my gosh, this is scaring me. So it was a sign, and it was for, it was sort of like a spiritual Zen sign that you'd get with yoga, meditation, tarot, you know, all of that, which is the Piscean, you know, the mystical, which again, with Neptune and Aries, we will get that. The other sign was rebellion. The age of Aquarius, the art of war. And so, you know, we do need to look at the context of those things. We are finalizing a Piscean situation. We've had sun move back. It's retrograde, so the gates will be open. And quite literally, during this, you get your Mercury retrograde. It's stationed for me. Give it a couple of days. Things can, you know, it can be very busy. I'm just going to tell you, very busy, very confusing, very psychological, because you can be reflecting over old things. That can be a positive thing if it's productive, but you must give yourself a break. It's like going to the gym like Rocky, the art of war. Okay, this is the art of war. And you need to make it through 3 to 4 weeks. You're going to pace yourself, okay? It can burn you out, so be gentle with yourself. If you had a crap day, come home and break a plate if you need to. Cry, call a friend, have your connections. No, it is going to end. It is going to end, okay? I swear. The other thing is, if you notice a behaviour pattern that you think, hey, I've got to really stop, you know, and we're all human. Don't be angry with yourself. It's actually adult to notice those things and, you know, to actually check and go, oh, I could work on that. Where's that coming from? Journaling can be great. Even you acknowledging it is the first step. Okay, so it's not we're bad people. I can honestly tell a lot of you, I do firmly believe that what we're going through is really going to serve a purpose. I do feel for some they're having really great ideas coming through. And, you know, it could have been things I firmly believe things you weren't able to achieve back from 2020 and previous, where they were on hold, they're coming back. Okay. But they're not going to be the same. Something you went through, I would say, over the last, I don't want to put a time frame, I honestly don't, because I feel it's more relevant in the context of the wisdom you have is coming with you. Whatever you went through, whatever you've dealt with in adversity, restrictions, you know, inability to achieve something that you've wanted to do, this is effectively the hero's journey. So it is, don't feel you're not going to get what you want, because I firmly do believe you are, but I do think you're going to have to plan your attack with this in the context. Now, adversity, I do believe we will have. I definitely feel we're going to have shocks and surprises. When we do tend to get Mercury retrograde in the context of where the zodiac sign is, we particularly can have unsolved cases solved. So predictive-wise, I'll go into that shortly. Let's finish the tips. So be aware and plan for delays. So if you're traveling, cross your T's and dot your I's, okay? You're going to go backwards. It's okay to reflect. Don't live there. Give yourself a time frame. So if you find yourself, you know, drifting off, I would say, you know, try and give yourself a time frame. Don't live there. Ask yourself, is this thought productive? If you're confused, especially if you're trying to plan something, it could be launching, you know, a business or something to that degree. Reflect, but don't go too much into the monkey mind, and don't get too angry. I would say dress for success. So it's more the context of know your destination, not the time, because I do think for many, this is going to be whatever we're actually moving through at this point in time. We're coming out in 2024 more prepared. You know, you're getting your ducks in a row. It's like suddenly you're like, oh, I'm building a house. It's not going to be 24 hours, although the technology might come through for that. We'll have a laser machine, it'll build it, and we'll have our Jenga box. Now, plan. Don't be too rigid. And I know for some of us, it might be we have no choice. It might be we have to get this done. So that pressure point's on. We're pulled in directions with family because of Jupiter and Cancer. We're feeling almost like, you know, you're the bottom of the barrel and you have to deal with things. And I'd love to hear some of what you guys directly are feeling. It is worse than the beginning of the year, frankly. I don't know. That was pretty shit for me. Nothing I planned happened. Neptune likes to do that to me, though. Look, whenever I see a Mars retrograde in the year, I mean, I think the thing that took the cake for me this year was realizing Juno went retrograde in my Venus and North Node. I was like, really? No wonder I felt like crap. But yet a lot of people said it would get better. When I do look back in the context, I think it has once you've decided. And this is why I'm saying to you guys, I do think the key to it is, you know, don't get played by the player. You can have something out of your reach. This could be a relationship, for instance. I've had a lot of people lately ask me, okay, so that reference point you made, can you please give us some pointers? And I'm like, might have to be an instruction video. So whatever your goal is, it is achievable, especially when you know your opponent. So is it, give me some examples. None. It's better for, it is better in the context that when we know where we're going and we're not putting pressure on ourselves about getting there today, you are going to find different ways to alleviate those stresses. So you're more going to turn a negative into a positive, and you're going to restructure the way you're going to do it. If you're in a situation that is very toxic, I can say this retrograde can just make that cemented, you know. And sometimes when we are in the ego, the third eye, which yes, we all have ego, okay? It's not, I remember saying something to an individual, and I said, there's a karmic contract, and I won't reference who the person is. And the first reference point that was understood, which is very common, is, oh my God, no, this person's really nice. So we have these contracts, we have these belief systems, but sometimes we can actually spiritually get into this logic of tunnel vision where we can't see a solution. So we just say, you know, we're going to accept it. This is the way it is. There's no other solution. And then we have a tower moment. And sometimes those tower moments do actually create doors for us. So this can be quite positive also. I do think there's going to be kings in the media, kings and queens. I do think there's going to be a lot of gossip coming out. Some of the maybe plans and decisions that were made are going to go backwards and be reassessed, and maybe situations can be changed. Definitely, I would say for male individuals, especially male children, they do need to be more careful. They can be accident prone. They can be in the media for various reasons. This can be males, boys, cockiness. I mean, literally every person I have passed on the street, you can hear the signature of, and, you know, Mercury in Leo, right? And it's, you know, when we're summing up this statement, please, 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 no Leo think that this is the sum up of what your zodiac sign is, because it's not. This is a retrograde, and these are the contexts of how it can come up based on also the other kind of energies that are in the sky currently. Okay, so how can we experience this? Similar to an eclipse, when Leo likes to know where it's going. Okay, let's just get to the point. Leo they work hard, right? Look, they're let's go. When a retrograde comes or an eclipse, it's like, well, where the hell are we going? Why are we going back there? So it can be very frustrating. Very frustrating. Sometimes when we have this understanding suddenly that we were regardless, so it's frustrating. So that embodiment is going to come up collectively. We can feel frustrated. We can feel like, oh my gosh, when's this going to give? We can have every conversation, as I mentioned, I've heard is a person expressing what another person is not honoring them based on. There was a lady standing on the street, and this was all today, literally all today. Well, they're doing this and they're doing that, and I bloody have to do everything. And I was like, oh God, I am. So, you know, there was another screaming at her partner. And I did actually have a premonition a week ago, and I literally just heard screaming. The portal I was seeing as being quite big was August, and I have said that pretty much from the beginning of the year. I do feel something quite significant is going to happen, and I want you guys to pay attention to August, because that effectively our next nodal cycle, to my belief, is Aquarius and Leo, and that's why I do think, especially our previous Mars and our current Mercury, there is a context there. To the dates I checked, I also feel those eclipses do start next year in those zodiac signs, where we are moving between the two. Now, we're probably going to be, as per any nodal phase, more experienced in the context of this frequency at this point in time, and moving into new chapters and having more understanding. We are not going to be having a Mars retrograde next year. Okay. Generally speaking, there's a bit of a gap. So we are moving into a bit more free flowing. That really did exhaust a lot of us. Not only from an emotional point of view did we have Pluto exiting a sign it had been in and ending those chapters for centuries, really. That was exhausting enough. We also then had Mercury retrograde, we have Mars retrograde, we have Venus retrograde, we had Juno retrograde, we had planets then. No sooner did we come up there, and I think it was March, it was like, quick, open the membership. It was like, bang, everything else moving signs or in a retrograde. So I think we've done incredibly well, especially if you find yourself still standing. I want you to really give yourself a pat on the back. I'm packing, getting lost, and a lot of purging. Oh, sweet. Where are you packing? Where are you going? Generally speaking, this is one thing I can say to you. If suddenly you found that you have to move home, it will be in your birth chart, and it generally means that wherever you're going, the door is open for you. So don't get too scared. There's reasons we go over old things. The other thing is, and I'll tell you, I'm already witnessing it, males this year will really find it hard. Jupiter linking to masculine is very psychological associated, connected to inner child. And the funny thing is, when you do look at the notion of Cancer, which is technically, it's like the fourth house, it's home and family. I had Pluto there. It sucked. It really sucked. That was the worst, that was the worst thing I've ever experienced. I'd rather give birth. I'll just say that. To 20 kids. It sucked. The emotional trauma, the misunderstandings, the very educational after the fact. And it's a very short, sharp burst. But I very much am seeing this come through. And I think these individuals are going to struggle because in society, we have become so conditioned to make it unacceptable to express. And so I've always said this, how do we break that paradigm? Is actually talking to people like their friends and making it where it's not something to be ashamed of. Referencing maybe what you've gone through so somebody can feel that it's not a disease, it's something that we all go through as human beings. It would be perfectly normal to feel depressed this year, in my opinion, from the astrological point of view. Pisces, for me personally, it's very spiritual, but it can be very psychological. If you can actually have your tools, I would say in the last 3 months, I moved through a big transit many years ago, and I found that I have worked on a lot of things. It doesn't mean I'm there. I have found I'm going back on some things and reutilizing some tools. So for some of you, it can be that all of a sudden you're finding certain foods maybe don't work for you, because we have the South Node in Virgos to do with wellness and nutrition. It can be also our critical attitudes towards ourselves that we've just got to ditch, that we've got to get to a point where we have confidence. Maybe we're in analysis paralysis. We're not doing things. We could be making excuses because it's like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired. Trust me, I feel like I'm dragging my body on the floor. And I'm trying to restructure routine to make it nicer to me. And hopefully that will aid with some things. And that can be something that you can try, is looking at the reference of, okay, how do I get organized? Sometimes if it's all in here, psychological, Mercury, like, have you ever been to this point where somebody's coming up to you, they're asking you for something, you're already dealing with 100 things in your head, and they're coming at you and you're like, oh my God, just back off. It's better to write those things down, or to say, sorry, just can you please wait a moment? I'll just be 5. I've got some things I'm just trying to finish. I'll be with you in 5. But I think, especially if we are getting snappy, it's going to be super important to try and be patient and articulate things, but you might need to reiterate them. And you also might be actually creating boundaries, I feel, through this transit, based on maybe where some unhealthy boundaries. So have any of you found that you've had to, and boundaries don't have to be nasty. It could be suddenly you've changed. And for a lot of us, we are going to change. We are coming through differently. So sometimes people aren't directly relating to us because they're not understanding where the shifts come from. So some people do need a little bit of time to come to terms with those things, because they can feel almost spiritually, oh my God, you're leaving me. You're moving in a different direction. What does this mean? Are you rejecting me? Sometimes a lot of these things we actually make up in our own mind. I will tell you, how many of us have done that? So with the Art of War, let's look at it. And I can give you some examples of maybe the context. So the other thing I'll say is know what you want and go towards it, just expect a few delays. That's all. Now, obviously, that's going to be difficult if you do have to plan something and you have to move through. You've got to do what you've got to do. I would avoid buying anything technical, obviously. Anything major, probably the worst time to actually make that. But if you have to, you have to, okay? The other thing is where it does come to the context of both Mercury and Leo, crosswise obviously can occur. There was something else I really wanted to reference and make sure that we didn't miss it. Be secure online. Be very cautious of gossip. Double check your facts. And plan. Now, that moon, although it's a new moon, like I said, we will come back to this, and we are going to talk about the moon sign by sign and give you the context of it. So I'm going to give you a few tips and examples relating to the art of war. Now, the one thing you need to know in this, whether you're having a conflict with an individual or it is a circumstance that you're trying to navigate and you're like, oh, this could be 100 things. It might be you need to have a major conversation with somebody and you're like, oh, God, how do I do that? I would say, actually, if you do know that person, you can actually tactically approach it. Now, I do have quite a few clients at the moment I'm coaching. Some of them are having conflicts where it does relate to work. There was an individual that's quite toxic that this person's dealing with. And I did reference this point of the art of war. Okay, so with the context of the art of war, how can you do that? And I do not mean, and I reference karmics because obviously I do cover twin flame path here. And so, the example factor was, look at a karmic. What does a karmic do? A karmic is quite calculated, and a karmic can be quite conniving, manipulative, but it has come from a place of survival. And so you can, from a conscious point of view, actually implement some of those things in a healthy way, not a negative way, which is A, knowing your opponent. Okay, who are you dealing with? What are you dealing with? Is it how people are seeing you? Is it a financial situation? Is it career? Is it external influences? You do know revenge was a dish served cold. It really is better. It's like soggy porridge. Okay, so know your enemies and know yourself. Know what your capacity is. Be aware. Understand the strength and weakness of those who are your opponents. So, say you wanted to rise through YouTube, right? Do your research. Don't be somebody you're not. Be you. Be you. Honestly, you'll get education the whole way through. Example. Next one. What's your strategy? Now, it is going to be a bit difficult to have a strategy during a freaking Mercury retrograde. Let's be real. But psychologically, if you do keep your eye on the goal, whatever that is, it may pivot and change because you and your consciousness, with your thoughts, might change. You might change your mind, and that's okay too. Don't be pissy at yourself if you change your mind. It's fine. I would say assess what you want to do. Don't focus on the terrible things, okay? Analyze your opponent. Also, look at the factors of this could be, what are you comfortable with doing? What is their tactical approach? What is their belief systems? It's like, be Mike Tyson, man. Size them up. Strategy. Okay. Now, where is the weakness, in the situation or your plan? I would say also play the poker face. If you do not want anyone to know, keep your cards bloody close to your chest. What is the Mercury retrograde? I'm telling you, we've got Uranus and Gemini. This is not the time to gossip. It's not the time to gossip. It's not the time to gossip, right? Some crap is going to come out. We're going to get leaks of information. We're going to have gossip. It's going to be about celebrities. It's already starting. It's going to get worse. Old cases solved. Yeah, we've had the most horrendous accidents over here. I cannot explain it. South Node in Virgo, still Mercury, which is a shitty place for it to be in the context of driving and safety. Hospitals, which is Virgo. Uranus and Gemini, changes in the area of schools, technology, the car industry. Mercury retrograde. So that's 3. Okay, so yes, you do have to be careful. Be bloody aware of your environment. Okay, what do little crowns mean? We'll look at that shortly. I'll have a look at it, doll. Okay, next step. I do remember having a vision of that years ago, so I have to touch base with you. Okay, now where oh god, this makes me laugh. Okay, disguise your intentions, and I challenge any of you to type up here where some things are going on and how you directly can deal with a situation. And I'll give you an example of how you can deal with the situation. So you may need to put the poker face on so other people around you do not know what you're planning. Okay. A is because what happens when look, it can be that suddenly Leo can be very attractive, but again, we've got the South Node in Virgo. The subjects that can be coming up is your routine. It can be your wellness, how burnt out you are, how you're balancing things in life. Subjects to do with career and children. Whether you feel comfortable in your own skin, whether people give you enough praise and respect. Frustrations about other people maybe getting merit and you doing the exact same thing and getting shit, which again, I will say in the context of this, and I did start referencing this, I have seen this, and I also do try to look at the astrology also in the context, and I pause and I try to go into self-awareness so I can observe, okay, is this something that I am doing? Or, and it's important to check yourself because, yes, we can actually, have ego, or we can be maybe the perpetrator in a situation. So, why the art of war? Many have referenced a Mercury in Leo as ego, which is true. And yes, that can be so. In some areas, it may be that it's cropping up in others and the influence around you. So, depending on the house, say if it was in your first house, it could be somebody defaming you and they're constantly trolling you. The other, say it's second house, there could be deprivation of your finances. So just examples. It could be a circumstance still in the same house, but occurring externally. So it doesn't have to be that, hey, and look, we can all be perfect. But when we are faced, and as human beings, this is something that we do need to understand. I think many of us do. Many of us do not know what we are capable of until we're put into a corner. Do you know what I mean? And so we can say, hey, I would never do that. But I don't think psychologically any of us really know. So, attempt to not put yourself in situations that could be difficult. Try to navigate it as best you can. Yes, communication may be the key. You might need to repeat yourself. There could be crosswise misunderstandings. How another person receives it is not your responsibility, although it can kind of make your life easier. My partner's family coming, brother's staying with us. Oh, it's going to be fun. We talked, and I have an exit if I need. And I think that's healthy, Angela. I think especially when we do have wounds associated to situations in the past, that's what I'm talking about with the art of war, is going, okay, this is the situation. It doesn't even have to be that somebody's bad. It's how it's making you feel. It's what it's making you comfortable. Although I would say the one thing in the context, 100%, the one thing I would say is years ago I was having triggers and I was like, oh, I just want to be like Buddha. I really want to be like Buddha. How do I get there? And I've mentioned this to a lot of you that have followed me for ages. For those of you that are new, hello. And this context was I was going through a very difficult time, and I was just trying to get myself grounded. And I just out loud said to a friend of mine who was spiritual, I just want to be like Buddha. And he goes, what do you mean? I said, I'm looking at the tree and, the wind's bashing it about and it's just flowing back and forward and it's coping. And I think how we do that is sometimes those triggers have been with us for years. Remember the North Nodes and Pisces, which can be shadow work, okay? There's getting into a more spiritual practice, being productive, finding ways to overcome things. And so how do you do that? Sometimes what's required is desensitizing a wound. And so how do you do that? It's about moving into it and sitting in that vibration. Obviously, if it's dangerous, no. But trying to, especially if it has evolved and you're like, but it's still a trigger, but it has changed, that's a real good time to start pushing yourself into it to overcome that so it doesn't define you anymore and control you. But 100%, that's what I was saying in the context of the art of war and having a plan. You need your backup plan. You need people to call. You need to have your grounding tools. Being aware that you're going to need to be patient and kind to yourself, having friends to talk to, and prepare in for the new moon. We'll try to come to it for you guys then. The next one is, so need to know the weaknesses, be it it's a goal, a person, place, or thing. Hide your intentions and forge your plan. So what's the plan and execution? Number one, we'd need to look at the window. So preparing, if you can only do 5 minutes a day or, working on something, being flexible too. This literally is going to set you up for decades. If you can start, instead of looking at life at this point in time as it's friggin' impossible, turn that table around and say, many hands makes light work. We are a collective. How adaptable are you? Look at where your skills are in life in general. Sometimes we can kind of compartmentalize ourselves. We can say to ourselves, oh my gosh, this is all I've ever done. I could never do something else. And then when you look at how many different skills you have, it shows that you can pivot. It also shows that we can have fresh perspectives. Anything that's new always scares us. It does. And yes, that's emotional intelligence. It's like, okay, what am I going into? I need to assess that. This is the art of war as well, right? It's the art of war. You're assessing it. So concentrate your focus, especially if you go into that vibe where maybe somebody's blowing up at you, they're screaming, they're being nasty, you're dealing with the true effects of a Mercury retrograde. Come back to the what's my goal? And sometimes that doesn't work when you're triggered. Come back to a point where you go, okay, I'm gonna concentrate my focus on a particular area, but do not spread yourself too fine because it's going to be bloody hard. If you've got 5 and you have that creativity, go and do what you need to do. If you don't, step back and be patient. In the context, especially with the shadow, the amount of weeks Mercury is going to be retrograde, it's not large, but we're tired. So try to get in a better sleep routine. Tune out. Like, yes, if you're going to use, maybe, say you're popping onto YouTube, have a little audio mix that has meditation in it. If universe removes something, say the power goes out, they believe from a spiritual point of view that you need to be in quiet time so you can do your shadow work. Does that make sense? So what we do is go, heck, okay. And like I said, masculines are going to be going through this hard time. I cannot understate that. So from the art of war, we're planning, we're preparing, we're ascending. We're not putting pressure on ourselves because if I'm to be perfectly honest with you, I'm going to give you some dates this is going to link to. I'm going to give you some guidelines and timelines about how to make this work. Now, you need to understand your environment. You need to understand your enemy. Now, what's the enemy? It could be time. It could be finances, whatever it is. Avoid conflict where possible. Just think of yourself. You're Rocky. You're going to the gym. You have a goal here. Now, In the context of crosswise, yes, relationships can crop up. Misunderstandings. Be patient. Be self-focused. Not self-centered. Self-focused. Try to negotiate things. This is going to actually be a fantastic time to renegotiate terms. Now, if you feel from a conversation piece this is too difficult based on the fact it's retrograde, you could be psychologically doing that in the mind first. Planning your attack, looking at what you're going to do, how, it's almost like you are literally like ChatGPT and you're trying to navigate that circumstance. But do not feel ashamed if you feel confused. I think the thing that makes me feel in the context of this, and I think it's actually been a blessing, is for many people in an awakening, what you can find is, and I do believe we are going to see a big bulk coming in this year where they're really having this shake up energetically. I don't feel it's spiritually completely come online yet, but I do feel it on its way. Because I guarantee you'll probably see some YouTubers you haven't seen in a long time popping up. There is something energetically calling in and reshifting everyone around globally for key moments and things ahead. So this pivot at the moment, when you say to yourself, I know where I'm going, I know what the plan is, the timeline may change, the implementation, what it looks like might change. So is it a mission, a person, place, or thing? Is it your healing and you're being strict with yourself and you're saying, gee, this is taking too long. Why haven't I got my shit together? Why are you being so hard on yourself? What's the rush? If you're a piggy bank and you're an investment and you want another person to invest in you, you must invest in you. You must. Must. Okay, so how will this hit you? What zodiac signs do we have in the house? Let's look. I'm going to be brief with this because I stayed up way too late. Now, if you do want me to go more in depth, you can go to our booking page. I am updating it. So for some of you that have been with me years, you may notice that after your purchase of the bookings, you're actually getting different style notifications. Oh my word, I had this very interesting experience when I started editing it because I am actually doing 2 jobs. So apologies to you guys. What a shit show and a mess. I literally had in the checkout form, and I think it's funny. I'm laughing at myself. I was like, how do you have the first name and the last name at the bottom of that form? Virgo sun. Virgos. Oh, it's resonating as a cosmic journey. You can do it. Put your back into it. We can do this. We can do this. Okay? We can do this. We have support. We chime in. We chat with each other. We do the work on ourselves and we see how this is going. So, in the art of war per zodiac sign, we are going to start. Okay, so we have Aries. Aries, for you, this, because of the placement of Cancer, there can be shadow work, there can be energy coming up around family. It is the moon coming also is going to be something that's going to create a signature. Now, this can be a time where, I would say you are going to have some advances and changes, right? Changes in a sense that I feel that for you, how you relate to your inner child, how you relate to your confidence, how you relate to creativity, especially if there's subjects to do with money coming up for you, you may find that those luxuries and what you're wanting, you could be reflecting upon maybe what you're doing. You could be wanting to suddenly pivot and go, wow, I'm not quite where I used to be. The 5th house can be to do with illicit affairs. You could be doing shadow work relating to that. You could want to be more creative. You could be thinking up creative ideas right now. This can be a time of reflecting upon your childhood. So if you find that's coming up, or again, I would say, especially from a Mercury point of view, when we are emotional, and this doesn't mean to say a whole transit in that house would be this for you, but Mercury is retrograde. So with the axis of Virgo, Mercury, and Leo, I want you to pay special attention to what you're consuming, habits, patterns, etc. Because it's one way it actually can show up, where it can be where it's almost like, think about it this way. When we're children and we're being nurtured and we're being soothed, maybe because we're sick and our mother's holding us in her arms, and, you know, we're either getting breastfed or we're getting bottle fed. We're being nurtured. So it's very natural, you know, from childhood that we do that. So emotionally, when we can't express or feel that we're not being heard, we can eat. I do feel for many of you, especially if you've found that Jupiter's kind of impact on you guys has made you feel less beautiful, I do feel an exotic vibration coming through for you guys, where I feel you really want to get your creativity back. So you could be going back to ways of being. You might want to get your sexy body back, getting the, you know, the frequency back. And so it's not about Rome being built in a day. It's like, what's your plan of attack? Now, also, if you have been reflecting upon a person that really hurt you, it can be that these people come back at this point in time. It also can be that you're reflecting upon, you know, how far you've come maybe, and maybe some old feelings about the situation are coming up. You could also be wondering about what they are doing. There also could be some cross wires around children. For those of you that have children, you might be like, okay, what do we do? It could be maybe you haven't talked to them, or maybe there's, you know, been some confusion on how to deal with these things. If you have a project that you're wanting to do, or you're wanting to get it off the ground, I would say keep your eye on the goal. I would say from a creative point of view, this is a beautiful opportunity to maybe look at something that you'd done before and look at if that would be something that you want to do again, and how you could tweak it to actually physically move that forward. But this can be a very creative thing. And this can be a time in which, for you, Aries, it can be that you are looking at where you want to go moving forward. Now, there can be opportunities for love. There is a need also to look back on maybe some hobbies and things that you did that you just let go of. You also could be, again, I would say be careful because it is Mercury. And again, it could be that you are eating on the run, or, you know, finding that you're just getting over certain foods and they're not resonating with you. You could be tightening your budget for a goal because there can be exuberance in that location. There's some ways that it can play out. So the art of war for the next zodiac sign. Well, it's South Node and it's Mercury, baby. So you guys, I want you to pay attention. You guys are going to be totally different by next year. Do not feel the fact that that South Node is there, that you will feel, and I'm just going to pre-warn you, Virgos, we're going to get to you in a minute. You may feel that everyone else comes before you. So you may actually find this Mercury retrograde even harder. Don't feel that, loves, okay? Because at the end of it, you are going to be like, I see both sides. You're going to look at it more from the context of how you can negotiate terms and not let people mess with you, but also how you can honor yourself and know that that's true, that you are first, that it is important, and that you don't need another person to tell you that. You just know it. You're like, it's almost like it can come through a little bit bitchy. And I have to be so careful because of my placement. I'm trying to be responsible here, but we do need to be playful. You will be different people. You come back and talk to me. You will be different people. I've had that transit twice. It sucked. And I referenced this in the Members Hub, where I physically had, the North Node in my first house, and then I had the South Node in my first house. And you got, your moon, your sun, your ascendant. It sucks, okay? You change. You're different. It will serve a purpose on that level. So I would say don't be critical on yourself. Don't feel like people actually don't see you and love you and feel that you guys are important, because it's actually not true. People actually really do look up to you. They do worry about you, but sometimes when we're very condensed in our own drama, we can accidentally be self-centered. And I'm meaning that from an external point of view, but unless we actually express it and, take those walls down, sometimes people don't see it. So we can presume that a person has cast a judgment on us, and, that may not be true. So that's one example. So Aries, we've got Leo next to me. Let me think. Brain's dead right now, honestly. That's another thing with Schumann, with the energy. Don't be surprised if you're having issues with your thoughts. Taurus, you guys at the minute, if you've had some crappy years, you might feel like there's a subtle breath of fresh air with Uranus jumping out of your sign. It is going to move back, but you guys have really established a different viewpoint in life. You may find that in life you're understanding the need to pivot, the need to be flexible in certain areas. But you also are going to find that you're going to be very focused on, I would say, building up your resources, gaining confidence, gaining courage. Now, this Mercury for you, it is in your fourth house. So, I had a chat to a few individuals that are Leos, and I'm actually bumping into a lot of Leos at the moment. You can find at the minute it can be really hard from the context of where Leo is positioned for you around home. Okay? Now, you may find that your routine, this could be anything down to you changing your routine. You have to move home. It could be you're doing renovations and you're trying to get the house in order because you feel psychologically whatever's coming, it needs to be organized. You could be having issues with your children, with your mother. It could be you caring for your mother or your parent or your father. It might be that you feel that you are not, that you need to be home. It could be that you feel you need to be home and not out and about all the time. Now, there can be, for those of you renovating, I would say delays. I would say keep all your receipts, okay, whatever you buy, and add security, okay? Being that it's Mercury retrograde, it's a good time to probably go over any of your old paperwork that links to the home. I would say also where it does come to maybe making up families and dealing with them and communicating, it could be that you're going over old ground. And again, I do tend to feel that whatever the signature is, if there's disputes or conflict, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. 1 minute.